Chapter 33-37. Fox St. Law was shocked as she turned around and stared at the two new type of corpse puppets. The Overlord is here too, why didn't you say anything? The corpse puppets looked at her calmly. You are the one who brought people to set up the array. You are the second palace master of secluded palace. We are only responsible for following orders. Fox St. Law's throat tightened. Her pair of pupils looked at the pair of fairy-like golden boy and jade girl in front of her in horror. Fear gnawed at her limbs and bones. I was still thinking. How to lure you out, I didn't expect. You are so impatient, taking the opportunity when I am not around to attack the East Continent. Yiqing Luo wrapped one hand around Dmo Xian's waist, smiling sweetly as she looked at Fox St. Law, the smile on her lips gradually thickening. That's just nice, then let's settle all of you in one go, and save me trouble later. While she was speaking, her fingertips had already raised the raging glower flame fan. The majestic pressure attacked downwards. Fox St. Law's expression changed again. She could obviously feel it. Since the last time she crossed hands with Yiqing Luo's ability had become stronger again. And, stronger, not just by a little bit. Beads of cold sweat appeared on Fox St. Law's forehead. Because Wolf St. Law died to save her. All this was because of Yiqing Luo. She wanted to kill Yiqing Luo, to seek revenge for Wolf St. Law. She begged the palace master to get an array. She wanted to trap Yiqing Luo in the Forbidden Grounds, forever unable to leave the Forbidden Grounds. But she had neglected. This piece of Forbidden Grounds was originally Azure Dragon Slumber. How could the array trap Yiqing Luo, who had a contract with Azure Dragon? Fox St. Law's face was ashen. Imperial Madam. Imperial Madam. Suddenly, not far away, East Wave Monarch, who had struggled free from Hao Nanren, rushed towards Yiqing Luo's direction. East Wave Monarch's face was filled with joy and pleading. Imperial Madam, please save the East Continent. That bunch of monsters from Secluded Palace are about to invade the East Continent's territory. To East Wave Monarch. Yiqing Luo was the savior. Seeing Yiqing Luo coming out of the Forbidden Grounds, and in such a flashy manner, riding on a huge dragon. It was as though he had seen hope. Yiqing Luo was the hope of the East Continent. Yiqing Luo heard East Wave's monarch's voice and her vision fell onto him. I will settle it. 4 simple words. It was as though the East Wave's sovereign had been injected with limitless power. He bent his waist and bowed deeply towards Yiqing Luo's direction. When he lifted his waist again, he returned to his calm and majesty as the ruler of a country. Since he chose to believe in Yiqing Luo, he would no longer hesitate. What he needed to do was to settle all the factors which would disturb Yiqing Luo. Furthermore, he would try his best to complete the conditions which he had promised Yiqing Luo previously. The East Wave sovereign decisively called out to the 20 or so cultivators who were still alive. They quickly restrained the stunned man behind him. Hao Nanren's behavior today. This had already caused the hearts of the profounders from the various powers to turn cold. The sect master they respected was a sect master who was willing to maintain the peace of the continent, protect their territory, and protect the people. Not because of his own selfish interests. Time and time again, he had disregarded their lives. This battle, because of Yiqing Luo's return, blew the horn. When Yiqing Luo held on to the Secluded Palace's second palace lord, riding on the Azure Dragon, and appeared on the battlefield with Dmo Xian. Chapter 33-38. East Continent's commoners and various powerhouses had treated Yiqing Luo as a deity and respected her. Because Yiqing Luo brought along the Overlord to join in, Secluded Darkness Palace's aggressive attack and invasion was completely interrupted. Furthermore, they retreated step by step. The Overlord's power was needless to say. In order to let his woman enjoy herself, he basically wouldn't make a move. Although he didn't make a move. But he stood on the battlefield, his gaze was fixed on Yiqing Luo. That unique aura still gave Nether Palace a huge pressure. Looking at Yiqing Luo's side. A green dragon. A white tiger. A vermilion bird. Plus 30 ferocious three-eyed heavenly beasts which no one had ever seen before. Adding on Yiqing Luo's explosive power. It was simply a massacre in a slaughterhouse. Apparently, Yiqing Luo was going to have this battle with Nether Palace. It was treated as a testing ground for her to continuously advance 3 grades. After the profound grade advancement, the biggest training was actual combat training. Only through actual combat could she discover her own shortcomings and use the profound energy in her body flexibly. Nether Palace was like a free experience points, how could Yiqing Luo miss it so easily? And this was a slaughterhouse's action. It also made those who knew that Yiqing Luo had a secret weapon to deal with that group of impenetrable monsters from the Palace of Darkness. Various large powerhouses cultivators kept on gathering around Yiqing Luo, hoping to obtain a secret weapon to protect their own powerhouses. After 2 days of battle, Nether Palace was forced to retreat out of East Continent's territory. This result. The entire East Wave continent was overjoyed. The commoners were shouting Yiqing Luo's name and Dmo Xian's name excitedly. But Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian stood on top of the city walls, looking at the direction of Nether Palace which was forced to retreat. But the expression on her face was still not relaxed. The reason why this battle had turned into a slaughterhouse was partly because of her advancement and the fact that she had contracted the Azure Dragon. But this battle was a little too smooth. Yiqing Luo felt flustered instead. Some were happy while others were worried. Just like this, Hao Nanren, who was imprisoned in the dungeon of the royal family, heard the good news from the guards. All he had was resentment and unwillingness. If it wasn't for that slut Yiqing Luo, the person who saved the East Continent and was hailed as a hero would be him, Hao Nanren. These honors clearly belonged to him. It was Yiqing Luo, that scoundrel, who snatched away his honor. He, the sect master of the Jade Dome sect, was trapped in this dark place. Hao Nanren looked around with resentment in his eyes. He scoffed coldly. After he left. How proud that little slut was right now. When the time came, she would die miserably. East Wave Monarch was obviously bewitched by that slut Yiqing Luo. To imprison him here. Weren't they afraid that the citizens of the East Continent who admired the Jade Dome sect would join forces to protest? Compared to the royal family, his identity as the sect master of the Jade Dome sect was even more noble. The purpose of the Jade Dome sect's existence was to maintain the balance between the 4 continents in the Nirvana realm. If he disappeared for a few days, the elders of the Jade Dome sect would definitely sense that something was amiss. This investigation would definitely lead to the royal family. If things got out of hand, Jade Dome sect's elders appeared. He had enough confidence to make Yiqing Luo disappear from this world completely. Chapter 33-39. Suddenly, an ethereal and cold laughter sounded in Hao Nanren's mind. That laughter was full of ridicule. Hao Nanren's expression changed and he quickly looked around. Who is it? Who is it? His movements attracted the attention of the 2 guards guarding outside. The guard walked in and looked at Hao Nanren. He shouted angrily, "If you don't want to be whipped, behave yourself." After saying that, the 2 guards stood at the bars of the dungeon and continued to chat. "Stop looking, you can't see me." The voice rang out again. Hao Nanren's pupils constricted. He looked at the 2 guards who were leaning against the bars of the dungeon and chatting. Their expressions were the same as usual. Obviously, they did not hear this sudden voice at all. How Nanren calmed himself down and walked to the corner of the dungeon warily. The dignified sect master of the Jade Dome sect has fallen to such a state. How pitiful, the cold voice seemed to be regretting something as it clicked its tongue and chuckled. How Nanren's face darkened and he asked angrily in his heart, "Who are you? What's your motive for looking for me?" The cold voice chuckled again. The illusory laughter seemed to come from all directions. "Do you think that the current you still has something that can be used by this empress?" The cold and gloomy voice mocked without holding back. How Nanren, who had always been conceited, could not tolerate someone looking down on him. "Since I have no value, why are you looking for me? I just feel that the sect master of the Jade Dome sect is a little ridiculous, so..." I couldn't help but laugh. The cold voice was full of sarcasm. How Nanren was furious and his eyes widened. "Get lost. He he he. Ha 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 ha." How Nanren became more and more furious. That voice was like a demonic voice that kept ringing in How Nanren's mind. Bit by bit, it tortured How Nanren's psychological defense. How Nanren had a splitting headache from the laughter. He hugged his head tightly with both hands and finally gritted his teeth as if he had surrendered. "What exactly do you want?" His submission made the cold voice very satisfied. The cold voice did not continue laughing. Instead, it chuckled and said, "The sect leader of the Jade Dome sect is still dreaming that there will be an elder of the Jade Dome sect or an elder of the sect coming to save you. I really think that you are foolish and naive." How Nanren's expression froze. "What do you mean?" "Your families, the next successor of the Jade Dome sect that you hid has already been brought into the palace by the East Wave's sovereign," the cold voice chuckled in a low voice. It seemed to be mocking him, but it also seemed to be pitying him. How Nanren's body stiffened, and his eyes widened in shock. "The next successor is here, especially when he is controlled by the East Wave monarch. Do you think that the elders of the Jade Dome sect who have long wanted to divide your forces will miss this opportunity?" The cold voice was still explaining the current situation to him in his mind. "So, are you still hoping that the elders of the sect will find out that you've been imprisoned and rush over to save you?" When the last word was uttered, Yi Zichen's expression changed. How Nanren clenched his fists. No. It couldn't be like this. He had clearly hidden that brat very well. How could he be taken away by the royal family? In his heart, he kept brainwashing himself not to believe the words of this mysterious person. However, there was a voice in his mind telling him. Chapter 3340. In the end, How Nanren knelt down weakly. He hugged his head and asked softly, What should I do?" As the sect master of Jade Dome sect, even if How Nanren was narrow-minded, he was absolutely not a fool. He naturally knew. The appearance of this sinister voice was definitely not as simple as watching him make a fool out of himself. To be able to silently appear in the dungeon under such tight supervision. And to be able to converse with him without being detected by the guards. It showed how powerful the owner of this sinister voice was. This person would find him. Which meant that he still had some value. And it also meant that this person had a common enemy with him. But How Nanren couldn't guess. Was this person's motive the East Billows royal family or Yi Qing Luo? No matter which one it was. They were all his targets for revenge. Do you want revenge? The sinister voice laughed coldly. How Nanren clenched his fists, yes. Not only did he want revenge. He also wanted to protect his Jade Dome sect. Jade Dome sect could only belong to him alone. No one else could even think of touching it. Even if it was his own son, he wouldn't be able to get his hands on it. I can help you to walk out of the dungeon, but the rest will depend on what you do. The sinister voice laughed. That's right, that son of yours is hidden very well by the royal family. If you want to find him, you have to put in some effort. How Nanren's eyes flashed as a vicious glint flashed past his eyes. He had to find the son who had the mark of the next sect master of Jade Dome's sect. Otherwise, once that child had a chance to make a comeback, he would absolutely not let him off. If it wasn't for the child who had the God Emperor mark, once he died, Jade Dome's sect would be affected. Otherwise he would have strangled the child to death the moment the God Emperor mark appeared. He was the sect master of Jade Dome's sect. That child had seen him kill his mother with his own eyes. That child had always hated him. He was clearer than anyone else. So he absolutely had to find that child. "What do you need me to do?" Hao Nanren asked gloomily. The sinister voice laughed coldly. "Do you think you have any value for me to make use of? I don't believe that you will help me unconditionally." Hao Nanren squinted his eyes and said coldly. The voice laughed again. "Indeed, I won't help you unconditionally, but it's also true that you don't have anything that I can use." The voice paused, and the coldness in it sent a chill down Hao Nanren's spine. However, after all, an annoying fly is also a troublesome fellow to deal with. Hao Nanren hadn't thought about the meaning of this sentence. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his head and his vision turned pitch black. After that, he lost consciousness. East Wave Continent, Jade Dome City Imperial Palace. East Wave Monarch stood respectfully behind Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian, as his face was filled with reverence. Chapter 3341. Based on Seclusion Palace's character. After being beaten to the point of retreating out of East Continent's borders. But there was still no movement. They must be suppressing their evil intentions, waiting for the right time to unleash it. She absolutely could not let her guard down. Yi Qing Luo leaned on Dmo Xian's arm as she smiled at the crowd behind her. "Monarch and I are merely making a deal. You've completed my request and I'll settle Seclusion Palace for you. There's no need to thank me." No. Imperial Madam's request is for the sake of East Continent. After East Continent Monarch found the God Emperor's imprint, the future successor of Jade Dome sect, he completely understood why Yi Qing Luo would raise such a request. Even for him who was in a high position. He couldn't understand. How could Hao Nanren be so heartless to hurt his own flesh and blood, the descendant who would take over his position as Jade Dome sect master in the future? Just to protect his position as sect master? By right, shouldn't he be nurtured from a young age to protect Jade Dome sect in future? But Hao Nanren trapped the boy in the secret room and restrained him with iron chains. He used various humiliating methods to drive the boy crazy. If it wasn't for the fact that the boy was quick-witted and acted dumb, enduring the humiliation. Probably now. He couldn't even keep his limbs and had become a cripple. Luckily, he was able to save him in time. As long as the boy recuperated properly, he would definitely regain his health in time. This boy definitely had a grudge against Jade Dome sect and his own father. Imperial Madam asked him to bring the boy back to teach him personally. Then when the boy grew up, she would let him become Jade Dome sect master openly. She hoped that East Continent royal family and Jade Dome sect would be on good terms. Because he had suffered too much since he was young. The boy would know how to be grateful. It's all in the past, let's not flatter each other anymore. Yi Qing Luo waved her hand. She thought for a moment and decided to remind them, Seclusion Palace has always been sinister and cunning. They have lost this battle completely and will definitely find a chance to counterattack. It's better for everyone to be more alert during this period of time. East Continent Monarch heard the deeper meaning in Yi Qing Luo's words and his expression congealed. "Thank you Imperial Madam for your reminder." Yi Qing Luo, East Wave Monarch and various powerhouses representatives exchanged some conventional greetings and instructed them to take note of some small matters. Just as he was speaking, Yi Qing Luo's expression changed slightly as her originally smiling long and narrow eyes suddenly squinted. "Imperial Madam, what's wrong?" The East Wave sovereign was always good at reading people's expressions. he immediately asked worriedly. The East Wave continent had already regained its peace. However, the East Wave sovereign's heart was still in a mess. Yiqing Luo's emotions. It was highly possible that it was related to the lifeline of the East Wave continent. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes as her fingertips gently caressed the profound phoenix ring. Then, he glanced sideways. His peripheral vision collided with Dmo Xian's. Her prey had taken the bait. Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian looked at each other with a smile and immediately stood up. The two's actions stunned everyone present, including the East Wave sovereign. The East Wave sovereign came to his senses and stood up as well. "My Lord Emperor, Madam Emperor, what's wrong?" "It's nothing." Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes were deep, some small private matters that need to be settled. She held on to Dmo Xian's hand and under everyone's startled gazes, they walked out of the palace. Chapter 33-42. Right, Jade Dome Sect's young master, it's best that you bring him along and take care of him personally. As for the two people in the dungeon, I'll settle them. East Wave Monarch was a little dazed. He hadn't finished digesting the meaning of Yiqing Luo's words. Why did she suddenly mention the successor of Jade Dome Sect? And the two people in the dungeon, could it be that something had happened to the two people in the dungeon? East Wave Monarch was an intelligent man. No matter how many questions he had, he wouldn't voice them out now. He kept replying to Yiqing Luo's instructions. Then he dismissed those powerhouses cultivators. He rushed to the palace of the successor of the Jade Dome Sect. In the dungeon, when Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian appeared together, it caused a huge commotion. Yiqing Luo raised her hand to stop the guards' enthusiasm. The two of them walked quickly into the dungeon and walked towards Hao Nanren's cell door. The guards opened the chains attentively. "If Overlord and Imperial Madam want to interrogate the prisoner, just let us bring him over." "Why did you come over personally?" Yiqing Luo didn't say a word as she walked straight into the dungeon. Her gaze fell onto the corner. A man dressed in a prisoner's uniform curled up on the ground, as though he was in deep sleep. The guard said attentively, "Imperial Madam, don't worry. Jade Dome Sect Master fell here after a bout of madness and hasn't moved at all." "Hasn't moved?" Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly as she walked towards the person in the corner and stepped on him. The person in the corner still didn't move at all. The guard heard the heaviness in Yiqing Luo's tone and his heart trembled. The two guards swiftly walked forward as they squatted down and pried open the person in the corner. When her messy and dirty hair was lifted, she looked at him, revealing Hao Nanren's plump face. The guards heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily, he was still around. They hurriedly smiled at Yiqing Luo and were about to speak. But when the young lady saw Hao Nanren's face, her expression turned even gloomier. Her long and narrow eyes seemed to be filled with raging waves. Imperial Madam, is something wrong?" The guard was shocked by this powerful aura as he felt a chill down his spine. Yiqing Luo kicked her feet as her round body turned. "Look carefully." The guards suppressed their fear and stared at Hao Nanren carefully. One of the guards suddenly turned pale. He's dead. Right, dead. The rotund man lying on the ground was no longer breathing. The guard was stunned as he raised his head in puzzlement and looked at Yiqing Luo. He hoped that Yiqing Luo could give him an answer. Why did he suddenly? The sect master of the Jade Dome Sect was dead. They had been guarding the entrance of the dungeon. How did the sect master of the Jade Dome Sect die? "Madam, I really don't know what's going on." The guards were so shocked that they fell to their knees. Yiqing Luo shifted her feet away from that corpse. She looked at Dmo Xian and curled her lips slightly. "If we rush over now, will we be able to catch up to the most exciting part?" "Yes." Dmo Xian gazed deeply into her eyes. Yi Qing Luo held on to Dmo Xian's arm and turned to look at the guards kneeling on the ground. You don't have to blame yourselves, this person is not Hao Nanren. Not sect leader Hao. The guards were stunned and stared at the corpse on the ground. This face, this figure, no matter how they looked, it looked like Hao Nanren. In this world, was there anyone who had the same figure as Hao Nanren? Chapter 33-43. Before he could finish, Yi Qing Luo interrupted, no need, Xian and I will settle it. Saying that, she and Dmo Xian walked out of the dungeon. Hao Nanren wouldn't die. Neither she nor the Dark Shadow Palace would let Hao Nanren die. He's dead. As the sect master of one of the 4 great sects in the Nirvana realm, it would definitely attract the attention of the Heavenly Tao. Right now, the Nirvana realm was being targeted by the corpse puppets and the Dark Palace. The Heavenly Tao was aware of the current situation in the Nirvana realm. He would definitely intervene in this matter. How could the Palace of Darkness allow such a thing to happen? And the reason why she couldn't let Hao Nanren die, it was because if Hao Nanren died because of her, no matter what the reason was, the death of the sect master would be blamed on her. At that time, a lot of troublesome things would come one after another. In any case, they had been fighting in the Nirvana realm for such a long time. There was no response from the upper realm and the heavenly axiom. Rather than relying on the heavenly Tao, it was better to rely on oneself. Therefore, she did something to Hao Nanren's body very quickly. It was also commonly known as recycling. While the East Billow Sovereign was imprisoning Hao Nanren in the dungeon, based on his experience fighting against the Palace of Darkness for such a long time, Yi Qing Luo had long guessed that over at secluded Darkness Palace's side, they would definitely repeat the same old trick, starting from the enemies around her. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. The Dark Ghost Palace made use of this to their advantage. So Yi Qing Luo might as well beat him at his own game. The Palace of Darkness wanted to use Hao Nanren's hatred to distract them and attract everyone's attention. Then, she would use Hao Nanren as bait to lure out the people behind the Palace of Darkness. Although Yi Qing Luo wasn't sure, the person who came to help Hao Nanren would be the person behind the scenes of the Dark Palace. But one thing was certain. This person definitely had an important position in the Dark Nether Palace. As long as he followed this clue and caught the person behind the scenes of the Dark Palace, he would be able to do so. All the future that the gloomy palace had imagined would be for naught. She had sealed most of Hao Nanren's meridians with needles. The current Hao Nanren probably couldn't even defeat a low-level profound practitioner. In addition, in Hao Nanren's body, she placed a goo worm that Miao Yi had given her. According to the Mother Goo's reaction, Yi Qing Luo was able to differentiate Hao Nanren's position very quickly. Everything was indeed as Yi Qing Luo had planned. Following the Mother Goo's response, Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian quickly arrived at a place outside of East Continent's borders. This was a huge palace built of green bricks that seemed to have existed for a very long time. An extremely dense yin qi floated above the palace. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. This place, why does it look so strange? Why don't I remember there being such a palace at the border of the East Wave continent? In the past, there really wasn't. Dmo Xian caressed her fine black hair. There was none in the past, but now there was. Who could build such a palace in such a short period of time? Moreover, this palace looked extremely old. How could he not see that it was a newly built palace? Hao Nanren is in the palace. Could it be that this palace is an illusion created by the Palace of Darkness? Yi Qing Luo asked shamelessly. If it was really an illusion of the Dark Palace, then it would be a little tricky. An illusion of the palace had the owner's consciousness. If she and Dmo Xian were to get so close to each other. Chapter 33-44. This would also expose their tracks. It's indeed an illusionary palace. Dmo Xian looked at the young lady's burning gaze as his thin lips curled into a smile. Does Lil Luo want to go in? Yi Qing Luo held his palm as she smiled. Xian can bring me in, right? Dmo Xian would ask in this way. He must have thought of a way to enter the palace without getting hurt. Dmo Xian's eyes drooped as his deep pupils gazed deeply at his wrist, at that fair and tender little hand. If Lil Luo wants to go in, I can bring you in. Yi Qing Luo's smile had yet to widen. However, the man suddenly held her hand. His fingers tightened as his arm exerted strength. Her body was brought into Dmo Xian's arms. The scorching temperature infected Yi Qing Luo. The man's husky magnetic voice was heard beside her ear, but... Lil Luo, what are you going to use to bribe me to bring you in? You. Yi Qing Luo's cheeks turned hot as she widened her eyes and stared at Dmo Xian. But the moment she raised her head, she met with Dmo Xian's deep and watery peach blossom eyes. That brilliant and colorful light. It was so bright that it made her heart tighten uncontrollably as it palpitated faster. This man. He really didn't let go of any chance to flirt with her. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips rose as her long and narrow eyes curled into a watery arc. She laughed softly as she cooperated with him and said what he wanted to hear. I'll use myself to bribe you, how about that? Dmo Xian's eyes were filled with smiles as his palm held the back of the young lady's head as he suddenly bent down and kissed her lips. It was just a very light kiss before he left her lips. Let's collect the interest first. He laughed lightly as he released the back of her head and held her little hand in his large palm. Let's go. Yi Qing Luo regained her senses from the beauty. She actually stood in the palace. What the heck? Wasn't she just standing outside the palace? Why did she come in? Could it be? Earlier when Dmo Xian was kissing her, brought her into the palace. Did he need to be so mysterious? Looking at the young lady's shocked face and staring at him with a helpless look. The expression on Dmo Xian's face turned warmer. The depths of his eyes were also tainted with a bit of doting and tenderness. Let's go find Hao Nanren. To be able to make such a big scene in the palace, I think, that person must be the palace master of Gloomy Palace. Yi Qing Luo pulled Dmo Xian's arm and spread out the mother beast in her hands, following the mother beast's reaction, searching for Hao Nanren's direction. With the guidance of the mother beast, Yi Qing Luo quickly came to the room which Hao Nanren was in. However, she and Dmo Xian had just stepped into the room. Behind him, a sinister laugh sounded, "TSK. As expected, you've come." That cold voice was accompanied by a creepy laughter. When Yi Qing Luo heard that, her expression changed slightly as she swiftly hugged Dmo Xian's arm and turned around. But behind her, other than Hao Nanren, who was sitting on a wooden chair, there was no one else. The moment he saw Yi Qing Luo, Hao Nanren was also surprised. He slammed the table and stood up. You bitch. His eyes were scarlet red as he clenched his teeth, looking as though he was about to rush up and swallow Yi Qing Luo alive. Yi Qing Luo's vision looked around vigilantly, as she squinted her eyes. Her perceptive ability couldn't detect the aura which was emitting that sneer. Chapter 33:45. Dmo Xian held her hand and squeezed it. This action replaced his reply. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes trembled slightly. Dmo Xian's meaning was. There was indeed a fourth person other than Hao Nanren. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly constricted. She had already advanced to Sky Profound 4th grade. She couldn't sense the presence of the fourth person. It showed how powerful that person was. You slut. How did you know that I'm here? Hao Nanren bellowed in exasperation, and what on earth did you do to me? Why is it that I Have no way to utilize the profound energy in my profound jade heart. Are you the one who did it? Hao Nanren howled hysterically. It didn't even attract Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo's gazes onto him. This made Hao Nanren feel that Yiqing Luo totally didn't put him in her eyes. In fact, Yiqing Luo indeed didn't put him in her eyes. Yiqing Luo's thoughts were all on that powerful and mysterious person who couldn't be seen. Slut. In this place, I'm not afraid of you at all. Hao Nanren was flustered as he rolled up his sleeves and pounced towards Yiqing Luo's direction. He hadn't finished his furious howl. Dmo Xian raised his hand slightly. A burst of majestic profound energy sent Hao Nanren flying out. Yiqing Luo half squinted her eyes as she slightly raised her head, as her lips curled into a faint cold smile. Since we will enter the palace, it is within your expectations. Now that this is your territory, do you still not dare to show your true face? She intentionally suppressed her voice to be extremely calm. Her words were filled with provocation towards that mysterious and powerful person. When Dmo Xian indicated that there was indeed a fourth person in this room, Yiqing Luo knew that she and Dmo Xian had fallen into a trap. That person in the dark had long known that they would come to the palace. Or rather, just as she intended to make use of Hao Nanren to beat him at his own game, to use him as bait to attract the mastermind of secluded palace. The person in the dark also beat them at their own game, using Hao Nanren as the bait to lure them. Whereas she and Dmo Xian had changed from the hunter to the prey. That person lured her and Dmo Xian into this palace. Definitely. He already had a way to deal with her and Dmo Xian. The current situation. It was unrealistic for them to leave this palace. He might as well take the initiative to attack. First, he had to figure out who this mysterious and powerful person was, hearing Yiqing Luo's words. Hao Nanren's angry face froze. Little bitch, what do you mean by that? What do you mean that it was within expectations that you would find me? Finally, Yiqing Luo shifted her gaze onto Hao Nanren. The smile in her eyes was tinged with sympathy and pity. You actually don't know. But that's true. With the intelligence of the Jade Dome sect leader, even if he was sold, he would still happily count the money for the other party. What did you say? Hao Nanren's expression darkened. Isn't that simple? You are nothing more than bait that he used to lure me out. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched in ridicule. Don't tell me, you really think that secluded palace's people will save a useless trash like you? Little bitch. Don't even think of instigating this sect leader. Hao Nanren clenched his fists tightly. Ha, ha ha ha. That sinister laughter rang once again. Chapter 3346. That person was extremely tall and dressed in a black robe. It was the standard equipment of the mysterious person. With his face covered, it was impossible to see the person's face clearly. Especially, the dense black aura that shrouded his entire body was like a spider web, densely spreading out like a huge bloody mouth, causing one's scalp to go numb and fear to rise in their hearts. What shocked Yiqing Luo the most was, even if this person appeared in front of her, she still couldn't sense the aura of the person in front of her. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed slightly, as her slender fair fingers subconsciously held Dmo Xian's hand tightly. The man stretched out his arm and pulled her into his embrace. The warm scent of sandalwood permeated her entire body. Dmo Xian gently circled the young lady's petite body, as if the other party had scared the person in his heart. His pair of shimmering peach blossom eyes instantly shot out coldness, like frost cutting through bones. He looked at that person, palace master of the Palace of Gloomy Shadows. The man chuckled. His cold voice, which had been deliberately altered, sounded a little creepy. Your Majesty. I trust you have been well since we last met. This was also tacitly agreeing to Dmo Xian's question. Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace. As expected, the Palace Master of the secluded palace had come personally. Yiqing Luo narrowed her long and narrow eyes as she sized that person up. You. What's your motive for luring us to the palace that you've created? Weren't you the one who used this trash as bait to lure this empress into taking the bait? The Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace chuckled. Her sharp voice was strangely hoarse. As you wish, I have appeared in front of you. Why, don't you feel happy? Hao Nanren, who was labeled as trash, was speechless. Even now, he still did not know what exactly had happened. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips. If everything went according to her plan, she would be the hunter, using Hao Nanren as the bait to lure out the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace. Of course she was happy. But now, the situation was obviously different. She fell into someone's trap and became the other party's prey. Could she be happy? Who knew what kind of trap was laid in this palace, waiting for her and Dmo Xian to jump into the pit? The other party obviously knew that Dmo Xian was by her side. Furthermore, she had used Hao Nanren as bait and Dmo Xian would definitely be by her side. He even dared to play such a trick. Obviously, he had no fear towards Dmo Xian. Towards the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace, Yiqing Luo was more or less clear about him. According to Jun Qingwu and Dmo Xian's previous investigations, the person behind the gloomy palace must be someone with an extremely high status in the upper realm. And Dmo Xian was also from the upper realm. The Palace Lord of Netherworld Palace wasn't afraid of Dmo Xian's words. Either that, the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace already had a surefire plan to deal with Dmo Xian. Or, the Palace Lord of the Netherworld Palace and Dmo Xian's status were on par. Therefore, he wasn't afraid of facing him. This thought made Yiqing Luo's expression suddenly dimmed. Little Luo, The man beside her gently called her name. His deep and mellow voice was like a clear spring, instantly calming her heart. Yiqing Luo raised her head and looked at him. Mo Yao's peach blossom eyes glowed faintly. I'm here, don't worry. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up as she gave a sweet smile. I believe you. With Xian by her side. All her uneasiness, under his gentleness and calming presence, disappeared. She hugged the man's firm waist tightly. Chapter 33-47. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as her vision swiftly followed the direction of that aura. Coincidentally, it met with the Palace Lord's eyes. That's right. It was his eyes. That black cloak was shrouded in, making one unable to see his real eyes. It was like a black whirlpool, constantly surging violently. His sharp gaze was burning. That gaze was indeed scorching. What was going on? Why did the Palace Lord reveal such a gaze to her? Just like, what evil deeds had she done to let him down? But the Palace Lord didn't give her a chance to think deeply. The Palace Lord's eyes were once again shrouded in the cloak. Miss Yi. The Palace Mistress of Ethereal Palace deliberated over Yiqing Luo's form of address, as she gave a low chuckle. I heard that Miss Yi is exceptionally intelligent, this palace would like to hear. Miss Yi, what is this palace's motive? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. The Palace Lord continued to smile. If you guessed correctly, I will let you leave, how about that? The Lord of Abyss Palace's vision was fixed on Yiqing Luo. This gaze made Yiqing Luo feel uncomfortable all over. This Palace Lord. What on earth did he want to do? Why? Did she feel that his gaze had a strange feeling? Like familiarity? Like resentment? Or like? He was extremely displeased with her actions. All sorts of complicated emotions made Yiqing Luo slightly puzzled. Why did she feel that the palace lord seemed to know her? No. Impossible. If she knew this kind of person, so powerful that he was standing in front of her. If she couldn't sense such a powerful figure. It was impossible that she didn't know him. Her waist was suddenly held by a strong and powerful arm. The man pulled her behind him. His tall and straight body blocked in front of her. And also blocked the palace lord's vision. Dmo Xian's dark peach blossom eyes seemed to flash with biting cold as he looked coldly at the palace lord. If I want to bring my wife away, do you think you can stop me? Their gazes collided. The surrounding air seemed to have condensed. Yiqing Luo could even feel that in the air, there was a shapeless qi wave, constantly surging, revealing a strong murderous aura. Lord Dizun is really confident in himself. The palace master of the secluded palace sneered and suddenly raised his right arm. Yiqing Luo's expression changed. Ah Xian. Dmo Xian's arms tightened and a transparent barrier blocked in front of the both of them. In the surroundings, the luxurious palace slowly turned into a black aura, gradually distorting and dissipating. Gradually, it turned into an abyss that resembled hell. The black aura was twisting bit by bit. It formed another scene. Weeds grew everywhere, and the air was filled with the smell of plants that had been corroded, giving off a gloomy and horrifying feeling. At this moment, a powerful airwave turned into a hurricane and collided with Dmo Xian's barrier. Yiqing Luo was in Protector Mo Xian's arms as she opened her eyes and surveyed the surroundings. It was a desolate graveyard. It was impossible to tell how old this tomb was. The oppressive atmosphere made it difficult for people to breathe. Hao Nanren, who was sitting on the chair, saw this scene and was so scared that his legs turned into jelly. Where is this? Didn't you say that you will help me take revenge? Why? Hao Nanren was listening to the conversation between Yiqing Luo and the palace lord of the secluded palace. He more or less understood some of the words. Chapter 33:48. The palace lord's sinister voice sounded as he laughed softly. His laughter was ethereal, making one's scalp go numb. I didn't say I'd help you. With a flick of his palm, Hao Nanren's fat body flew backward and landed heavily on the ground. This graveyard was a little scary. The ground was filled with broken limbs and countless bones. Hao Nanren's fall had broken bones all around. The sharp bones pierced directly into Hao Nanren's body. It was so painful that Hao Nanren's features twisted as he screamed miserably. If it wasn't for the fact that under such a situation, if you died, it would be very difficult. I really don't want to keep you alive. The palace lord's tone was filled with impatience. Finishing his words, he placed his vision on Yiqing Luo. Miss Yi, I'll give you one last chance. Are you going to guess or not? That tone seemed as though he was teasing his prey. It made Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased into a bundle. The palace lord's motive. Even if she knew, she didn't want to answer. Dmo Xian's thoughts were the same as hers. The moment the palace master of secluded darkness palace finished speaking, Dmo Xian had already held on to the young lady's waist tightly as he leapt up. His purple robe fluttered as the patterns on it seemed to be sparkling brightly. The icy cold profound ray was sharp and valiant as it headed straight towards the palace lord's face. His eyes were sealed in ice for thousands of miles. His entire body was emitting a strong flame which contained a shocking murderous intent. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo hugged Dmo Xian's waist tightly as she was stunned by the flame emitted from him. This Dmo Xian. As compared to the past times, it made one's heart tremble. This was the first time she saw it. Dmo Xian's arm hugged her tightly as his deep voice was still as gentle as usual. It's all right, close your eyes and it will end very soon. Only, this gentleness made Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly felt a tightness. She pursed her lips as she grabbed Dmo Xian's arm tightly. Wait a minute, Xian. You want to kill him? Dmo Xian's eyes drooped as his deep peach blossom eyes stared deeply at her face. You don't wish for me to kill him? That tone seemed to be a little grumbling. Yi Qing Luo. Surely he wasn't jealous again. It's not that I don't want you to kill him, it's just that I find it a little strange. Yi Qing Luo shook her head, knitted her brows and hesitated. The palace lord of the secluded darkness palace used a trap within a trap to lure us here, so it's impossible that he didn't take any precautions. I know Xian, you're very strong, but the other party is also from the upper realm. I'm worried that he might have some conspiracy against you. Ha! Behind him, the sneer of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace could be heard. Apparently, he had heard Yi Qing Luo's words. Miss Yi is indeed smart. Indeed, I couldn't have lured you all here so simply. Yi Qing Tang said. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace's voice was cold and sinister. Even though he was covered in a black cloak. Yi Qing Luo could feel that under that cloak, there was an eerie and sinister aura. Unfortunately, I discovered it too late. The palace lord of Netherworld Palace sneered in disdain as his cold eyes looked at Dmo Xian, who had stopped his attack because of the young lady's obstruction. Heh, so what if they found out? Ever since Dmo Xian made his move, Dmo Xian had already fallen into his trap. The palace lord of the Netherworld Palace's words made Yi Qing Luo's expression congealed as her heart thumped. What did he mean by this? The next moment, the palace lord of the Netherworld Palace gave her the answer. She saw the palace lord of the Netherworld Palace giving a cold laugh as he waved his black robe, following the movement of a burst of black qi. Ka. Chapter 33-49. This voice made Yi Qing Luo stun slightly. She swiftly turned her head around and looked behind her. She saw the black qi curling up in the tomb behind her. Unknowingly a huge crack had appeared. Xian. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted and her heart sank as she hugged Dmo Xian's waist tightly. Her fingertips moved and the glower flame fan opened up, sweeping away the billowing flames. Don't make a move, there's a problem. Dmo Xian's large palm pressed onto Yi Qing Luo's hand, and also suppressed the raging flames on the glower flame fan. What is this? Yi Qing Luo looked at the huge crack behind her. The entire tomb, under this black qi, looked even more sinister and eerie. Dmo Xian's expression was cold, his frozen peach blossom eyes stared at the palace lord of secluded darkness palace as his thin lips pursed slightly. I'm fine. However, from his tone and expression, it was clear that it didn't seem like he was fine. This was the first time Yi Qing Luo met with a high-ranked profound grade like Dmo Xian in a battlefield. Other than being able to sense the surrounding atmosphere, there was something strange. She was totally unable to sense where the danger was coming from like in the past. Dmo Xian had apparently guessed that the palace lord of secluded darkness palace had set up a trap here. He didn't say. It meant that this trap, to him, was a little tricky. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips as she clutched Dmo Xian's sleeve tightly. At this moment, she hated herself. Her improvement was still too slow. She kept saying that she wanted to walk side by side with Dmo Xian. But after such a long time, she was still unable to get close to Dmo Xian's height. All along, it was Dmo Xian who stood in front of her unconditionally, protecting her, helping her to sweep away everything. But now, she couldn't even help Dmo Xian with a little bit of help. There was a high possibility that she was a burden. Even though Dmo Xian's attention was focused on the palace lord of secluded darkness palace. But the young lady's depressed mood was still clearly felt by him, and he could clearly see through the young lady's thoughts. He lowered his eyes and caressed the young lady's head as he spoke warmly. You're already great, and you're not a burden. As long as you're by my side, that's enough. His warm words of love were like a hot spring, soaking into Yiqing Luo's heart. Her eyelashes fluttered, and her arms tightened around him. You're still talking about love when you're at death's door. I'd like to see how deep your love is. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace's sharp voice seemed to contain a trace of anger. As soon as he finished speaking, under the black robe, a hand was raised. His hands were long and slender, and they were very beautiful. It was obvious that it was the hand of a young man. A whirlpool of black airflow started to revolve round after round from his palm, heading straight towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo instantly felt a huge suction force, sucking her body towards the direction of that whirlpool. Little Luo, Dmo Xian immediately hugged her slender waist tightly. But just at this moment, that huge crack behind him suddenly stretched out a few arms which were formed from the black qi, and tightly wrapped around Dmo Xian. That twisting strength seemed as though it wanted to embed itself deeply into Dmo Xian's flesh. Whereas Yiqing Luo's body was still being sucked towards the direction of the palace Lord of Seclusion Palace. The man's strength around her waist became tighter and tighter. Yiqing Luo felt that her waist was going to be chopped off directly. Chapter 3350. Yiqing Luo felt the hand on her waist stiffen. Following that, she heard that sinister laughter continuing. This palace doesn't know how to have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Such a beautiful little beauty, if she were to be split into two. I wonder if she can still maintain her beauty. Yiqing Luo understood the meaning in his words as she endured that tearing suction force and stretched out both hands with difficulty, grabbing tightly onto Dmo Xian's arm. Ah Xian, don't listen. The hand on her waist slowly loosened. Yiqing Luo frantically tried to grab his arm. But Dmo Xian avoided it. Ah Xian. Losing the support of Dmo Xian's energy, Yiqing Luo's body speedily flew towards the palace Lord of Seclusion Palace. A dong sound was heard. Her petite body crashed into the arms of the palace Lord of Seclusion Palace. She didn't have time to struggle. The palace Lord of Seclusion Palace had already locked her body tightly. Yiqing Luo couldn't struggle as she immediately raised her head and looked at Dmo Xian. She met with Dmo Xian's deep peach blossom eyes. Those black qi arms which were wrapped around him had almost entered his body. And it was continuously pulling him towards the direction of the crack. This scene made Yiqing Luo's pupils dilate as an unknown emotion started to surge in her heart. Wait for me. She only had time to see the man's thin lips moving slightly as he spat out two silent words. Following that, she saw his figure completely being sucked into the crack. The entire graveyard fell into silence. However, that man who had been protecting her, but was afraid of hurting her, had already disappeared in front of her eyes. Ah Xian, she stretched out her hand towards Dmo Xian's direction as her eyes were blood red. But in the end, she could only watch as he disappeared without a trace. Seclusion Palace. Yiqing Luo's blood-red pupils were like a demonic datura flower blooming, flashing a strange treacherous look. She was locked in the arms of the palace Lord of Seclusion Palace. With a backhand, she grabbed the palace lord's collar tightly. A pair of blood-red eyes stared deadly at him. Where did you send Ah Xian to? What do you want to do to Ah Xian? Aren't you scheming against us? Why don't you send me over too? The palace master of the gloomy palace, who was being grabbed by the collar, was calm. The hand that was on her waist was still not letting go. He just looked at her quietly. He didn't answer Yiqing Luo's question. No matter how Yiqing Luo howled hysterically, he didn't seem to hear anything. Only Eustace under that black cloak, cannot see the eye, stares at her. After Yiqing Luo vented her frustrations, he didn't get a response. Gradually, he calmed down. Only then did she realize that she was very close to the palace master of the Netherworld Palace. She was so close that she could smell the cold air of the palace master of secluded darkness palace. The eyes under the black cloak gave her goosebumps. Those who didn't know better might think that the palace master of secluded darkness palace was secretly in love with her. He wanted to take advantage of her and admire her beauty. For some reason, at this moment, Yiqing Luo seemed to have seen a trace of familiarity from the palace lord of seclusion palace. However, she couldn't remember when she had interacted with the palace head of the secluded darkness palace. Miss Yi. The palace master of gloomy palace, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly called her name. Yiqing Luo's expression turned cold as she loosened her grip on his collar. What motive do you have? If your target is me and Xian, then wouldn't it be better to send me over to Xian? Ha, ha, ha. Chapter 33:51. Who said my target is you and the Overlord? The minute the palace lord said that, Yiqing Luo's expression turned cold. Her brows creased as her eyes were filled with doubt. The palace lord suddenly increased the strength in his arms, pulling the young lady's petite body closer into his arms. Looks like Miss Yi is unable to guess my intention. In this way, you are destined to stay by my side. The unfamiliar male breath made Yiqing Luo's expression turned extremely ugly. She struggled to break free from the palace lord's restraint. Her face was filled with disgust. Don't say it as though you have some improper thoughts towards me. Aren't you afraid of losing your palace lord's face by saying it so ambiguously? The palace lord didn't continue to hug her, allowing her to break free. After hearing the disgusting words from the young lady, the pair of eyes under the black cloak started to show traces of chilliness. However, the corners of his lips curled upwards. Then, word by word, she clearly spat out a sentence. What if I really am? What was it? Did he have improper thoughts towards her? Pooey pooey. Yiqing Luo was the first to spit on his face. This cold joke, it's not funny at all. Yiqing Luo rubbed her arms, as she distanced herself from him. Don't say that your palace lord is against me, chasing after me time after time, scheming and scheming, it's all to attract my attention. Palace lord, you're after all a high-leveled cultivator from the upper realm. Isn't it a little inappropriate to tease a married woman like this? Yiqing Luo's obvious disgusted action made the palace lord's pupils shrink slightly. The hands under the black robe, clenched into fists, tightened a little. A married woman. He gave a low laugh, disdainfully. You and him don't seem to be married. Sooner or later. Yiqing Luo replied decisively. So, where on earth did you send Xian to? The palace master of the Netherworld Palace lowered her head. The slender figure shrouded in the black cloak revealed a sense of loneliness and desolation. Yiqing Luo didn't know why, from him, she could see this kind of emotion. But this had nothing to do with her. She and the palace lord were originally enemies. The path they chose was different. The final outcome was bound to be a battle to the death. Suddenly, the palace master of the Netherworld Palace stumbled on the spot. He raised his hand under the black robe and pressed it against his head. Yiqing Luo creased her brows as she stared at his actions. However, he was secretly speculating in his heart. What kind of tricks was he playing now? In just a few breaths, the palace master of the Netherworld Palace's hand on his head slowly fell down. When he raised his head again, he looked at her. The aura on his body clearly revealed a bit of coldness. He was no longer flirting with her just now. Swish, there was a slight noise. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace suddenly approached. Against the backdrop of the graveyard, his entire body was shrouded in black gas, like a sharp blade baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, tearing open its bloody mouth. His black robe fluttered in the wind. The eyes under the cloak seemed to be dipped in poison, piercingly cold and bone-piercing. In the blink of an eye, His hand was already around her neck. The force was so great that it imprisoned her, making it difficult for her to breathe. This palace's target, right from the start, was only you. His sinister voice sounded a little misty beside her ear. The biting cold intent dispersed in the air. Circles and punches of profound waves imprisoned Yi Qing Luo's four limbs. Chapter 33:52. The secluded palace's target was her. She had always been very clear about this point. She had always been unable to understand why someone from the upper realm, risking the danger of being detected by the heavenly way, ran to the lower realm to build a secluded palace. And then time and time again, targeted her. What was the reason for it? To the people from the upper realm. No matter how powerful her innate talent and ability was. She was merely a cultivator from the lower realm. Why was it worth the palace lord of the secluded palace to spend so much effort to deal with her? Miss Yi, you don't have to worry. What I need is your body. As long as you listen to me, I can guarantee that your life will not be in any danger. The palace lord of the secluded palace inched closer to her as he smiled lightly. The strength in his fingers gradually tightened along with his smile. Yi Qing Luo's face turned pale and gradually turned green. But she didn't stretch out her hand to pry the hand on her neck away. Nor did she struggle or beg for mercy. A pair of icy cold eyes, suffused with a seductive shade of blood, stared deadly at him. Tisk, looks like Miss Yi has already realized that I cannot kill you. The palace lord of the secluded palace released his fingers after meeting her gaze for several breaths. Yi Qing Luo took a step back. Circles of red light appeared on her jade-white neck. She raised her hand and placed it on her neck. A pair of blood-colored eyes stared vigilantly at the palace lord of the secluded palace. Indeed, she could feel it. Although the palace lord of the secluded palace didn't show any mercy. It was indeed a stance to strangle her to death. But Yi Qing Luo knew. The palace lord of the secluded palace would absolutely not let her die like this. Just like what he said earlier. What the palace lord of the secluded palace wanted was this body of hers. This sentence, Yi Qing Luo didn't think that there was any other deeper meaning. But it was a serious meaning. The palace lord of the secluded palace wanted this body of hers to achieve a certain goal. Thinking carefully. It seemed that the palace lord of the secluded palace had repeatedly targeted her, was indeed. To control her, to make her listen to them. Not only the palace lord of the secluded palace. Even the dark forces in the past were the same. Suddenly, Yi Qing Luo seemed to have thought of something as her eyelashes fluttered. She abruptly raised her head and looked closely at the palace lord of secluded darkness palace. You all want my profound heart jade. After she finished speaking, the light in her eyes suddenly brightened again. No, that's not right, it's not only the profound heart jade, there are also other things. Everything that had happened in the past replayed in his mind like a slow-motion movie. Previously, the Dark King of the Dark Forces tried every possible way to snatch away the profound heart jade in my body. After that, the Dark Forces were taken away by your secluded darkness palace. You must have already known that my profound heart jade isn't simple. What you want is my profound heart jade, and this vessel that can hold the divine phoenix profound heart jade. You even joined forces with Godless Island. Previously, you sent Wu Sansha to snatch the profound phoenix ring. I'm afraid. Your goal is the same as the dark organizations. That's why the remnants of the dark organization are willing to be your lackeys. That's right, their goal was the same. It was all for the so-called tomb of the Divine Emperor. It was all for the so-called Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. To find the tomb of the Divine Emperor, awaken the Emperor of the Divine Emperor, and obtain the Divine Phoenix's inheritance. This was the original motive of the Dark Forces. The motive of the Palace Lord of the Secluded Darkness should be the same. Chapter 33:53. The palace lord of secluded darkness palace listened to her quietly. Indistinctly, his eyes under the cloak were tinged with a smiling intent. In fact, he was indeed smiling. His smile was light and filled with ridicule. Miss Yi is indeed, as the rumors say, intelligent beyond others. The underlying meaning was that everything that Yi Qing Luo said. Indeed, it was true. But unfortunately, it's too late to guess it now. I have no intention to let you leave. The palace lord of secluded darkness palace's laughter was filled with deep meaning. Come, continue speaking. I really want to know how much you have guessed. Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk slightly. From the palace lord of secluded darkness palace's reaction. She had guessed those things. That was about right. Her expression was calm. In actual fact, her inner heart was in turmoil. The little hand which was pressing on her chest unconsciously curled up. She looked at the palace lord of secluded darkness palace and slightly raised her head as she pursed her lips. There's actually no problem with this heart-calming pearl in my body. And indeed, it's for my own good, right? Feng Ling thought that this heart-calming pearl was intentionally tampered with by the palace lord of secluded darkness palace to harm her. But in actual fact, the palace lord of secluded darkness palace had intentionally made use of Feng Ling to pass the heart-calming pearl into her hands. No matter if it was Ghost Doctor or DMO Xian. They were unable to detect any ill intentions from the heart-calming pearl. Because there was no problem with the heart-calming pearl itself. The reason was, her body was the vessel which contained the divine phoenix profound heart jade. If she was swallowed by the divine phoenix profound heart jade. In this world, there was probably no other vessel which could contain the divine phoenix profound heart jade. In case anything happened to the divine phoenix profound heart jade. That was why the palace lord of secluded darkness palace intentionally made Feng Ling send the heart-calming pearl to her side. It was to stabilize the divine phoenix profound heart jade. But there seems to be one point: you and the dark forces are different. Yi Qing Luo spoke again. The dark forces want my profound heart jade to locate the vast water god relic and open the god emperor's tomb. But your palace lord of secluded darkness palace wants my profound heart jade, it seems, not only to open the god emperor's tomb. The palace master of the secluded palace smiled. Then, what do you think I'm doing this for? This represented that Yi Qing Luo's deduction was correct once again. Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk a few more degrees. You want to obtain the divine phoenix profound heart jade, borrow this body of mine, and seize the profound heart jade at the most appropriate and suitable time. Ha! Ha ha ha! The palace master of the Netherworld Palace couldn't help but laugh out loud. He laughed heartily. Indeed smart. Ha ha ha, what you said is correct. The palace master of Dark Shadow Palace admitted very decisively, but you guessed one thing wrong. What Dark Shadow Palace wants is not only your profound heart jade, they also want you as a person. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were half narrowed, but she didn't open her mouth to ask further, quietly waiting for him to continue. Sure enough, the palace master of the secluded palace didn't keep him in suspense. He smiled and said, do you really think you're just a lowly mortal from a lowly world? To be able to possess the divine phoenix profound heart jade that even the three realms of heaven, earth, and divine want to obtain, is he really just an ordinary person? No. Yi Qing Luo, you are not ordinary. Not only is he extraordinary, but he is also a genius that even the people of the upper realm are jealous of. Chapter 33:54. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered. Deep in her blood-colored eyes, there was a ripple of light. But her expression was still calm and indifferent. Slowly, she squinted her long and narrow eyes, her pink lips curled into a faint smile. I also feel that my identity is extraordinary. From the moment she found out that she wasn't Yi family's seventh miss, Yi Tianquang's biological daughter. She knew that her background wasn't ordinary. After all, how could an ordinary person's body bear the divine phoenix profound heart jade which many cultivators coveted? Plus, the profound flame Dubhi map which her mother left behind before she died. That map was mysterious and complicated. Even when Dmo Xian came to the upper realm, one of his goals was the profound flame Dubhi map. That showed how mysterious the Dubhi map was. And that time when the Baiming clan died to save Yi Fengru. The one which was left behind had something about her biological father. That box. A box which hid a powerful force. She didn't even dare to open the box. It was enough to show that her parents were extraordinary. She was the daughter of extraordinary parents. How could she be ordinary? But she didn't expect that the secluded palace not only wanted her divine phoenix profound heart jade, but also wanted to corrode her body, to turn her body into a puppet. The glint in Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed brightly. She crossed her arms and looked at the palace lord of secluded palace calmly. Looks like, you seem to know my identity, why don't you tell me, how arrogant is my identity? The palace lord of secluded palace thought that after he said that, Yi Qing Luo would be shocked, would resist and would go crazy. After all, no one was willing to become a puppet. A puppet which would be used by others in the future. But he didn't expect Yi Qing Luo's reaction to be so calm. So calm that she didn't believe that he had the ability to make her his puppet. Listening to Yi Qing Luo's casual question, the eyes of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace darkened. There was a hint of mysteriousness in his tone. So what if I know your identity? Don't tell me, you think you still have a chance to go to the upper realm and restore your identity? Yi Qing Luo smiled. To put it bluntly, you don't know anything about my identity. The palace lord of secluded palace choked and his body stiffened, not saying a word. Yi Qing Luo smiled again. There was a hint of malice in her eyes. She narrowed her eyes and looked at him with interest. Word by word, she said something that shocked him again. Palace Master of the Dark Abyss Palace. No, more accurately, I should call you, the Palace Master of the Dark Abyss Palace on the surface. The Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace shuddered. What do you mean? You're not the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace. Yi Qing Luo's smile remained unchanged as her tone was firm. No, I can't say that you're not, I can only say you're just the palace mistress that was pushed out on the surface, and there's someone else behind the scenes. The Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace was silent for a long while before she said, I have concealed it very well. How did you see through it? His voice was still a little hoarse. Yi Qing Luo smiled, imposing manner, and the feeling between words. Do you think that I'm not strong enough to be the Palace Master of the secluded palace? He laughed in anger. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. You're very strong and imposing. But, you're not the real Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace. Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace. Since his imposing manner was very strong, then which part had gone wrong? He had forgotten to tell his babies that Master Mo had taken part in a QQ reading activity. From tomorrow onwards, which was on the 1. He needed his babies to leave a message in the book comment section and interact with Master Mo. Master Mo would reply to all of them. Master Mo's post in the book comment section, hoping for your likes and replies. And for the QQ reading activity, Great God said, Master Mo would adjust it to 10 book currency per question. The mission requirement was to raise a total of 20. Great God said that his babies could come forward to ask questions. Chapter 33:55. You are the Palace Master of the Palace of Darkness, but the person who truly wants me is definitely not you. Yi Qing Luo continued to smile. I've crossed hands with the Palace of Darkness for such a long time, so I'm considered to have some understanding towards them. If you hadn't answered my previous speculations, I probably wouldn't have thought in this direction. Because the person who truly wants this body of mine, the person who wants the divine phoenix profound heart jade, will not answer my questions, nor will he tell me more. Because that person knew very well that if he said too much, it would make me suspicious. Once I became suspicious, your goal and plan would very likely fail. She chuckled, and a chill spread from the depths of her charming eyes. I don't think that you went through so much trouble to separate Ah Xian from me just to discuss things about me with me. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace was silent for a long time. The eyes under the black cloak were also filled with ice. He smiled as well. As expected of Miss Yi. No wonder the dark forces were defeated by you. The elite troops of the Palace of Gloomy Shadows couldn't do anything to you. He slowly stepped forward. He walked towards Yi Qing Luo. The yin qi in the graveyard was chilling. As he walked, the black gas shrouding his body floated. It made him seem even more treacherous and terrifying. Yi Qing Luo did not hide until he walked in front of her. Yi Qing Luo then slowly raised her head and met his gaze. His face was calm, and his eyes were as calm as still water. He stretched out his hand, wanting to touch Yi Qing Luo's face. The girl, who had been standing still all this time, turned her head slightly. You can talk, but don't touch me. I'm a married woman. She did not know which of her words had struck him. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace's fingers suddenly exerted force and forcibly grabbed her chin. Under the cloak, one could vaguely feel his ruthless gaze. Yi Qing Luo, I admit that you're very smart, but you've probably forgotten that even if there's someone behind me, I am indeed the mistress of secluded Darkness Palace. He closed in through the cloak. His breath splashed onto Yi Qing Luo's face. The unfamiliar male scent made Yi Qing Luo's slender brows crease tightly. She took a step back in discomfort. Her chin was tightly gripped by his hand. In the end, you still belong to me, his hoarse and shrill voice carried a hint of madness. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly trembled. Why did these words sound a little weird? Could the palace master of the secluded Darkness Palace really be interested in her? She raised her hand, trying to pry his hand away. However, he suddenly withdrew his hand, and even his body took a few steps back. He pulled a distance away from Yi Qing Luo. That hand which was originally pinching Yi Qing Luo's chin was pressed tightly on her head. What I mean is that you belong to me, as my vessel. His voice was somewhat breathless, as if he was suppressing something. She looked at his state. Yi Qing Luo smiled bluntly. She raised her lips and smiled wickedly. Looks like you're just being controlled by others. Once his actions went beyond what a palace master of the secluded Darkness Palace should do. The real mastermind behind the scenes. The forbidden curse on him would be able to restrain his actions in time. Chapter 3356. The palace master of Netherworld Palace, although she couldn't see his expression. But Yi Qing Luo sensed his gaze from him. All of them revealed the same message, are you a little stupid? Was there such a person who would steal someone else's corners so openly? How much confidence did she have that she could pry him away? Yi Qing Luo smiled. She didn't really want the palace master of secluded Darkness Palace to betray them. He knew so much about the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Her identity was the palace master of the Dark Palace on the surface. How could he bear to leave the Palace of Darkness? Moreover, she had no way of knowing the relationship between the palace master of Darkness Palace on the surface and the person behind Darkness Palace. They did not expect him to betray them at all. His words were just a test. He wanted to test if the real mastermind was here. However, from the performance of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace, that person, he shouldn't be here. Although the person in front of him wasn't the real palace master of the secluded Darkness Palace. However, his strength was also above hers. He should be someone from the upper realm. She might not even be able to handle him, not to mention the person behind the scenes. He knew that the real mastermind was not here. Yiqing Luo could rest assured and find a breakthrough point for him to get DMO Xian back. Or send her to DMO Xian. Yiqing Luo believed that with DMO Xian's strength, he would not be trapped. But it was obvious that the other party had purposely set a trap for DMO Xian. She would still worry and be afraid. At least, she had to be safe and sound until DMO Xian returned. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath, trying her best to make her expression look calm and indifferent. However, before she could open her mouth again, intending to get more information about the dark nether palace from him, suddenly, he felt a cold breeze on his cheek. Yiqing Luo seemed to have a reflex reaction as she evaded the attack and the palm wind fell downwards. Bitch! I want you dead. How Nanren's hysterical roar came into her ears. At the moment when Yiqing Luo's palm wind descended, he didn't evade at all. Instead, he faced Yiqing Luo's palm wind and pressed forward. How Nanren's profound grade was sealed by Yiqing Luo's pills. All that was left was brute force. At some point in time, a dagger had appeared in his hand. Facing Yiqing Luo's palm wind, the dagger in his hand stabbed fiercely towards Yiqing Luo's body. Yiqing Luo retaliated out of reflex. With how much Hao Nanren cherished his life, he would definitely avoid it. She had never expected that Hao Nanren would disregard everything and try to kill her. The palm hit Hao Nanren's chest. But the dagger in his hand also stabbed towards Yiqing Luo's body. Yiqing Luo had not expected this. When the dagger fell, it was also too late to dodge. Damn it! Suddenly, he heard a low reprimand. She felt her body lighten. She was pulled back a little. The pain that he had imagined did not fall. After Yiqing Luo steadied herself, she raised her eyes to take a look. Immediately, he was stunned on the spot. In front of her was the palace master of the Dark Abyss Palace, who was dressed in a black robe and whose face couldn't be seen. His hand was gripping the dagger with his bare hand. The sharp edge of the blade cut his palm. Blood oozed out. And that Hao Nanren, who was about 200 over kilograms, was also sent flying. You! Yiqing Luo pursed her lips as her thoughts ran wild. The words that were in her mouth couldn't come out. What on earth was going on? Had this world become a fantasy? Why? Would the palace master of the Dark Abyss Palace block this dagger for her with his bare hand? Master Mo is taking part in the QQ Readings April Book Comment Section activity. I hope that the babies are able to actively participate and help Master Mo and 7th Miss to fight for a ranking. The activity content was as follows. These were the tasks that the activity had assigned and must be completed by Master Mo in the QQ Reading app. 1. Master Mo will post a book comments post in the book comments section, hoping that the babies will actively like and reply to. Hoping that the babies will actively leave a comment in the book comments section and interact with. Master Mo will reply one by one and will add more details according to the content. 3. For the latest chapter, I hope that the babies will leave a comment. Every comment and comment will also be counted as a ranking of points. 4. QQ Readings. Great God said, Master Mo will adjust to 10 book coins per question. After Master Mo answers, I hope that the babies will leave a comment under the Great God's comment and interact with Master Mo. Master Mo likes to research on pseudo sounds and is not a professional pseudo student. You can try to answer the babies' questions with a mature sister's voice, Lolita's voice, and young girl's voice. The babies can casually tease Master Mo. Master Mo had always said that the continuation of a book was not only due to Master Mo's efforts alone. Along the way, the babies' support and love were indispensable in this activity, not to mention the top 10 or top 3. As long as we are not at the bottom, we will not let down your support and love for 7th Miss, and will not let you down. That is enough. No matter what the result is, this is a glory that belongs to all of us. Chapter 33:57. After the shock and astonishment. Yi-Ching Luo reflexively congealed her expression as she looked at the palace lord alertly and asked coldly, "What tricks are you trying to play now?" "Ha!" The palace lord scoffed as he slowly raised his head and looked at his hand, which was filled with blood. Following that, he casually threw the dagger onto the ground. The dagger, which was stained with blood, made a clang sound as it landed on the ground, which was littered with bones. He shook his bleeding hand as he gave a mocking smile. "This palace saved you, and your words are really hurtful." "Saved?" Yi-Ching Luo narrowed her eyes as her expression turned increasingly vigilant. "Are you trying to play the trick of injuring yourself? Trying to use this to move me so that I will listen to your arrangements?" The palace master of Netherworld Palace suddenly stopped talking. Even his swaying hand froze. Not sure if it was an illusion. Yi-Ching Luo somehow felt that there was a deathly stillness coming from him. Which sentence was it that had stabbed him this time? Yi-Ching Luo felt that this man was really hard to get along with. Why did she feel that every sentence he said could step on his minefield? Yi-Ching Luo felt very tired. Suddenly, the palace lord raised his head as though he sensed something as he raised his hand towards Yi-Ching Luo's arm. Yi-Ching Luo instinctively evaded. "What are you trying to do?" "You." His hoarse voice just spat out a word. Just at this moment, a few loud bang 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 sounds were heard as the entire graveyard was suddenly bombarded. The ground shook as a small crack appeared. Yi-Ching Luo's body couldn't stop shaking. It was at this instant that he grabbed her wrist tightly. Yi-Ching Luo didn't manage to shake it off in time. Her body suddenly tightened. The palace lord pulled her along as he sprinted madly towards another direction. His other hand, which was still dripping blood, hung by the side of his body. Blood flowed as it dripped onto the ground. "What are you going to do?" Yi-Ching Luo hadn't figured out where did that explosion sound came from as she was pulled along by him as they ran with all their might. She panted lightly as she spat out 3 words. She could feel a strong, vast, and majestic dark force eroding the entire graveyard. It made her feel a suffocating feeling. What was this energy? What was going on? Damn it! Too late. He could vaguely hear the hoarse voice of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace reprimanding him. Then, halted by his sudden movement, she bumped into his broad, hard back. Her entire face was smashed into his back. Yi-Ching Luo didn't have the chance to rebuke. Because she covered her mouth and nose, and the moment she raised her head, they saw a figure dressed in a black robe, the same as the palace master of the Dark Palace, standing before them. Looking at the figure, it should be the physique of a man. His black robe fluttered even though there was no wind. His robe fluttered wildly, like a sharp blade baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, as if wanting to devour everything. That majestic and powerful aura. It was released from this person's body. Yi-Ching Luo's expression changed slightly. Who was this person? It actually had such a powerful aura. Furthermore, this person's strength was definitely on par with the palace master of Gloomy Palace. She could not sense the aura of the palace master of the Nether Palace. That was because the palace master of Gloomy Palace had purposely concealed his aura. However, the person in front of him was different. That unbridled and arrogant arrogance. Majestic and powerful, boundless and boundless. It was just this pressure. It was enough to oppress her until she was almost out of breath. Chapter 33:58. The palace lord's figure stiffened as he bellowed in a deep and cold voice. "The overlord has already followed the original plan and entered the dark array. How did I spoil it?" That man's head moved. Yi-Ching Luo could feel that the gaze which was shot over from that man was as cold as a knife. That man asked, "Where do you want to bring her to?" The palace lord's aura turned gloomier and gloomier as his voice became even tighter. "I naturally want to bring her back to the palace of darkness." His words paused as he seemed to be impatient as he frowned. "Since when is it your turn to tell me what to do? If I don't come, do you think that you can still keep your life?" That man scoffed coldly as his tone had no respect towards the palace lord at all. Yi Qing Luo could tell. Although the palace master of the Netherworld Palace kept on saying, this palace master of the Netherworld Palace didn't say anything. But in actual fact, towards that man, he was obviously on his guard and apprehensive. Since he was the palace lord of the palace on the surface. In the palace of darkness, other than the real mastermind, who else did he need to be wary of? But it was very obvious. The man in front of him was definitely not the mastermind. After hearing that man's words, the palace lord's body tensed up even more. That hand which was dripping with blood was clenched tightly. When Yi Qing Luo saw that, the uneasiness in her heart grew even more. If it was this palace lord, she would be able to feel slightly more at ease. Because she could feel it. This palace lord didn't have any special evil intentions. But the man in front of her was different. The aura around his body was purposely released towards her. Furthermore, it was filled with malicious intent. Even though she couldn't see his face, she could also feel his bone-piercing gaze. "Your mission has ended, I'll handle the rest." That man opened his mouth once again as his voice was as cold as ice. The figure which was blocking in front of Yi Qing Luo stiffened once again but didn't leave. "This is my mission. It should be completed by me. Just based on you, when will you be able to bring this woman back?" That man was filled with disdain. "Anyway, as long as she's left with one breath, it's not important how I bring her back." As soon as he finished speaking, a burst of chilling aura charged towards Yi Qing Luo's direction in a domineering and overbearing manner. It was an irresistible pressure. This caused Yi Qing Luo's expression to change unpredictably. At the bottom of his heart, a wave of shock surged up. This person, he really wanted to kill. Yi Qing Luo swiftly raised her glower flame fan and her footwork was about to display her intention to retreat from behind the palace lord of secluded darkness palace. However, the force gripping her wrist tightened its grip on her. She couldn't escape at all. Damn it! There was no way to avoid this powerful dark force. He could only take it head on. However, the man who was holding her arms suddenly waved his sleeve. Majestic profound waves spread out in all directions. It collided with that person's ferocious attack. The man growled, "I don't need you. This is my prey." Bang, 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 the two forces collided in the air. Profound waves vibrated. Severed limbs and dried bones flew everywhere in the graveyard. The three of them stood steadily in the midst of this chi wave. No, to put it more accurately, Yi Qing Luo was forcefully pulled by the palace lord of secluded darkness palace so that she wouldn't be sent flying after the collision of the two forces. But her internal organs weren't feeling well. Chapter 33:59. The palace lord straightened his back as his voice turned cold. "Are you trying to fight with me?" That man sneered, "I'm saving you. I don't need it." The palace lord replied decisively, "I know very well what I'm doing." "I think you don't know what you're doing." That man's vision seemed to have swept past the palace lord's hand which was cut by the dagger. Looking at that hand which was filled with fresh blood, and the blood was dripping down. That man's smile turned even colder. "Either I do it, or you bring her back to the palace lord." The palace lord seemed as though he wanted to rebuke something. But he lowered his eyes and took a look at his own hand which was dripping blood. He hung his head down. His tensed-up body slowly turned around, facing Yi Qing Luo. He looked at Yi Qing Luo's face as his voice turned chilly. "Go." Yi Qing Luo's brows creased tightly as she took a step back. Her brows were filled with alertness towards him. Although, as compared to that man who suddenly appeared earlier, this palace lord of the palace lords seemed to be helping her. But who knew if this was a trick played by the palace lord? One white face and one black face. Then he deceived her just like that, to willingly fall into the pit. Seeing the distrust in Yi Qing Luo's eyes, the palace lord's mood sunk once again. He suddenly raised his hand and locked her wrist. Pulling her, he took big steps towards that man's direction. Yi Qing Luo's expression changed. Let go. Before Dmo Xian returned, she couldn't possibly leave with him. The strength of his fingers increased. If you leave with me now, you'll suffer less. I won't leave with you. Yi Qing Luo's other hand climbed onto his fingers as she forcefully pried his hand away. Palace lord of the palace lord of the palace, this kind of action of yours, not to mention your companions, will misunderstand you. Even I feel that you're secretly in love with me. The palace lord's hand was violently flung away. He stared at Yi Qing Luo. He didn't say a word for a long time. That low pressure made Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled. Did she say anything wrong? It was obviously him, playing the role of the good cop for no reason. It was hard not to be misunderstood. All right. A gust of cold wind brushed past his face. She saw that person stand between her and the palace master of the secluded darkness palace. He was getting closer and closer. Yi Qing Luo could clearly feel the chilly murderous intent from that person. She frowned in alarm, her expression tense. That man didn't hesitate as he abruptly raised his hand, and his profound energy exploded as his palm wind surged and struck towards Yi Qing Luo. It was extremely fast. Even the palace master of the Netherworld Palace didn't have time to react. Why are you dilly-dallying? I can't stand it anymore. How much time do you want to waste? Just cripple him and bring him back to complete the mission. The credit is yours. That person shouted impatiently. His hand movements became increasingly swift and fierce. The surging energy in the air caused people to be shocked. That person's attack was simply too unexpected. Yi Qing Luo, who had sensed the dangerous aura, almost reflexively displayed her footwork. Under the palm wind, a red dress flashed past like the setting sun. Rumble. The deafening cracking sound caused the entire graveyard to collapse. You actually dodged it. That person was slightly shocked and then laughed. Indeed interesting. Ghost King. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace shouted sternly, you've interfered with this palace's mission time and time again. This palace has the right to punish you for the crime of insubordination. The black-robed man who was addressed as Ghost King paused slightly. In his laughter, there was a faint hint of a smile. April Fool's Small Theater, Overlord upholds the rule of the husband. Yi Qing Luo, smiling and waving Xian, come over Dmo Xian, hugging we've only left for a short while and Lil Luo, already misses me. Yi Qing Luo, pushing him, stop fooling around. I have a very serious matter to tell you. Dmo Xian, evil smile, alright, Lil Luo, you say it. Yi Qing Luo, staring at him solemnly, listen carefully, what I want to say is, I don't like you. Dmo Xian, staring at her, oh. Yi Qing Luo, clutching his lapel, hey. Do you understand what I'm saying? What kind of attitude is this? Dmo Xian, raising his eyebrows, I understand. Yi Qing Luo, don't you have anything to say? Dmo Xian, smiling, what do you mean? Yi Qing Luo, exasperated, I said I don't like you anymore. I don't want to be with you anymore. Shouldn't you be begging me, coaxing me, and pampering me so that I'll change my mind? Dmo Xian, continuing to smile, oh, no need. Yi Qing Luo, unhappy again. Turning to leave, Dmo Xian, hooking her waist Lil Luo, Yi Qing Luo, turning her head away from him, don't touch me. I'm very angry now, the kind that can't even be coaxed by kissing, hugging and raising me up high. Dmo Xian, hugging her tightly, sighing, I know what day it is over there. Yi Qing Luo, dazed, how did you know? Dmo Xian, previously when I went to the 21st century, I wanted to understand you and specially inquired about the customs over there. Yi Qing Luo, dazed, you're an ancient person, is it really good not to follow my routine? Dmo Xian, April Fool's Day, everything said is ironic, so. Lil Luo, said she doesn't like me, actually she likes me very much, right? Yi Qing Luo, turning her head to leave, I didn't say anything, again. Goodbye. Dmo Xian, locking her waist tightly, lifting her chin, Lil Luo, although. I know, you're saying ironic, but hearing Lil Luo's mouth, saying such hurtful words, my heart, still feels very uncomfortable. Yi Qing Luo, looking at the man's approaching face, resisting to no avail. You, what do you want to do? Chapter 3360. But Ghost King didn't respond to the palace lord. His figure flashed as he passed by the palace lord and pounced towards Yi Qing Luo again. His entire body was filled with a murderous aura. The chilly aura enveloped Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's pupils dilated. Her long eyelashes trembled uncontrollably. This chilly aura. It made her limbs numb and unable to move at all. Even if she wanted to avoid it, she was suppressed by his aura. This man. What level was the profound grade? He was so powerful. She was about to step into the legendary stage, a sage profound grade, but she couldn't even withstand his aura. Ghost King. The palace master of Netherworld Palace roared, his tone filled with rage. Since Palace Lord wants to punish, then punish. But in order for the mission to proceed smoothly, I will take over and bring this prey back. Ghost King's tone was very calm, totally disregarding his anger. And with a wave of his sleeves, he took out a rope and tied up the palace master of the secluded palace. The palace lord was so angry that he cursed. But the more he struggled, the rope that was tied on his body was wrapped even tighter. Just as Ghost King's attention was placed on the palace lord, Yi Qing Luo was following Old Man Tsang's instructions, slowly circulating the profound qi in her profound jade heart, slowly releasing it to resist the invisible pressure. Like a warm current of profound qi, it spread out in her body bit by bit, and lingered around her limbs and bones. That suffocating feeling in her chest finally felt much more comfortable. Ghost King's reaction was very sharp. Yi Qing Luo's aura fluctuated slightly. He had already speedily fixed his vision on Yi Qing Luo. Even the cloak couldn't hide the chill in his eyes. You can still resist my pressure. Ghost King's tone was filled with interest, I really can't underestimate you. While they were talking, Yi Qing Luo only felt a chilly wind blowing by her cheek. A stinging pain eroded from her shoulder. Ghost King unknowingly stood in front of her again. One hand pinched her shoulder. 5 fingers exerted force and Yi Qing Luo could clearly hear a crack sound coming from her body. Yi Qing Luo gave a muffled groan. The intense pain caused cold sweat to seep out of her forehead. Her dislocated shoulder caused her to be unable to move her right hand. This restricted her from using the glowing flame fan with her right hand. Yi Qing Luo's breathing congealed as she endured the intense pain on her shoulder. She lifted her left hand and flipped her palm to hit the arm that was lying across her shoulder. That palm strike was ruthless. The Ghost King's hand instinctively retreated. Yi Qing Luo immediately retreated, avoiding the Ghost King's attack range. Shortly after, he quickly grabbed the glowing flame fan with his left hand. Profound chi gathered, and with a flick of his fingers, the glowing flame fan was like a raging flame, blossoming with raging flames. Bang! There was an explosion in the air. The powerful and vast profound energy surged violently. The Ghost King was also pushed back 2 steps by that palm strike. He raised his hand and looked at the arm that had been hit. His entire body was filled with coldness. The black yin chi in the surroundings was constantly twisting and swirling. His figure looked hazy and blurry. This person called Ghost King was not easy to deal with. No, to put it more accurately, she couldn't deal with him at all. If it wasn't for Old Man Tsang's timely guidance on how to retract his profound energy and escape from that person's demonic claws, there was a possibility that her entire right hand would have been broken by the Ghost King. The disparity between their abilities was just too huge, if this carried on. Chapter 3361. No way. Ah Xian had yet to walk out of that so-called dark formation. She absolutely could not let the Nether Palace have their way. At least, she had to drag it out until Ah Xian returned. Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers tightened. Half-squinted long and narrow eyes, suffused with a biting cold glint. The profound energy mobilized in the profound jade heart quickly filled her entire body. Then, she abruptly raised her right hand that was powerless to move. 5 fingers opened. Profound chi shot out. The strong airwave was like a huge wave washing the sand, surging violently. It set off layers of huge waves in the air. Her right hand's finger, a ball of cold and beautiful red light, enveloped it. The azure dew ring was burning hot on her fingertip. Yi Qing Luo's aura fluctuated and continuously rose. A pair of incomparably beautiful eyes, blood-red bit by bit, covered her entire pupils. Demonic, shocking people. This is... Ghost King stared at Yi Qing Luo's right hand. His tone had some meaning. You actually have the azure dew divine weapon? He seemed to have a strong interest. His eyes stared deadly at Yi Qing Luo. You can also use the azure dew divine weapon. No wonder so many people want to get their hands on you. When Yi Qing Luo released the azure dew divine weapon's power, she could also clearly observe the surrounding situation. After hearing Ghost King's words, Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly. This Ghost King was from the Nether Palace. Didn't he know that she had the azure dew divine weapon? Wouldn't he know her profound jade heart could unlock the azure dew divine weapon seal? Originally, the dark forces for her profound jade heart to unlock the azure dew ring seal. It could be said that they had racked their brains. The Nether Palace couldn't possibly not know this. Or this Ghost King was actually not from the Nether Palace. Lass, although we can confirm that there's nothing wrong with the Tranquility Pearl, with your current body quality, it is enough to extend the fusion time between the divine weapon and the profound jade heart, but you have to be clear, the other party's strength is at a height that you can't estimate. Old Man Tsang worriedly warned, don't force yourself too much, otherwise, with your current profound rank, if you suffer the backlash of the divine phoenix profound heart jade, not only will you be in trouble, this East Tide continent, even the entire Nirvana realm, will become your burial goods. After all, Yi Qing Luo had already advanced to Sky Profound 9th grade and was about to step into the legendary stage. How long the Azure Water Divine Artifact's power could be maintained, or how many times it could be used in succession, all of these numbers had to be calculated anew. If it exceeded a certain limit, even with the heart-calming beads suppressing the restlessness of the profound heart jade, Xiao Qin was not able to control it. He was afraid that something might happen to them. Yi Qing Luo's fingers clenched tightly, her blood-colored bewitching eyes were filled with killing intent. I understand. He paused. Her figure suddenly darted and appeared beside the Ghost King. He moved his left hand. The gourd flame fan unfurled and slashed out sharp wind blades. This sudden movement. When the Ghost King realized this, he tried to dodge. Yi Qing Luo's figure had already entangled him like a shadow. Bang! That gourd flame fan, which was like a blossoming flame, directly entered the Ghost King's body through his back. The Ghost King gave a muffled groan and turned his hand to grab Yi Qing Luo's injured right hand. Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes turned cold and her footsteps swayed. Not only did she avoid the Ghost King's counterattack, she also raised her leg and gathered profound energy towards the Ghost King's abdomen and gave a fierce kick. Dong! The Ghost King's body flew out in a straight line. The ground shook and a huge pit exploded as gravel flew everywhere. Hiss! Amidst the billowing smoke and dust, a low and hoarse sound of sucking in cold air was heard. Chapter 3362. No wonder it's the power of a divine relic. That hoarse voice could be vaguely heard again. Smoke and dust rolled. Ghost King's figure was faintly discernible. It gradually became clear. His robe was slightly messy and there were a few pieces of cloth hanging on it. It seemed that Yi Qing Luo's counterattack. It didn't cause no harm to Ghost King at all. Yes. Before you die, to be able to taste the power of a divine relic, it's not a waste for you to come to the lower realm, you should thank me. Yi Qing Luo's pale lips curved slightly. An evil smile bloomed on the corners of her lips. Between his brows, there was a captivating, oppressive cold smile on his face. Her words fell. Yi Qing Luo's fingers clenched again. The red light on the azure dew ring bloomed even more dazzling. Majestic, profound light, piercingly sharp. The momentum was majestic, like the surging waves. No matter how one looked at it, it was soul-stirring. But if someone looked closely, it could be seen. That young lady who released this powerful force. Cold sweat kept seeping out from her forehead, drop by drop, dripping down, soaking her robe. That beautiful face that could topple cities was extremely pale. Her brows were knitted tightly, her eyes were sharp, as if it was bearing great pain. But the young lady's movements were smooth, without any pause. The momentum released. It was completely different from what it showed on the surface. Bam! Another loud crash resounded. Ghost King's attack collided with Yi Qing Luo's attack. Both of them retreated a few steps back. A violent hurricane howled, rolling up the Ghost King's cloak. Yi Qing Luo didn't give Ghost King a chance to catch his breath. Her left hand clenched again, feeling the burning power of the azure dew ring. She leapt up, the glower flame fan flipped, the profound light burst out. Ha! Young lady, you believe too much in the power of a divine relic. Ghost King sneered, his eyes were filled with malice. Half squinting his malicious eyes, looking at Yi Qing Luo's profound chi-boundless attack. He sneered. The moment Yi Qing Luo approached, he raised his hand and grabbed Yi Qing Luo's wrist. Yi Qing Luo felt a sharp pain. She wanted to pull her hand away. But how could the Ghost King give her this chance? Her slender little hand was tightly grasped in Ghost King's palm. The Ghost King laughed coldly. Little girl, I'm afraid you've forgotten that with your current strength, the divine weapon is nothing but a useless object in your hands. His vision turned towards Yi Qing Luo's finger, at that azure aqua ring which was suffused with a red glow. The eyes beneath the cloak revealed a look of greed. A divine artifact, for you to use is a waste of a heavenly treasure. Why don't I take over the divine artifact and display its true might? Saying that, the Ghost King's finger flashed and turned into a hand knife, chopping towards Yi Qing Luo's wrist. Shockingly, he wanted to chop off Yi Qing Luo's hand directly. F***CK. F***CK. If you want the divine artifact, then say it openly. What was the point of stepping on the high and flattering the low? Damn it. They wanted to snatch her divine artifact. It also depended on whether she agreed or not. Yiqing Luo's blood-colored eyes flashed a strange red glow. When the Ghost King's hand blade fell, she endured the sharp pain and turned her wrist over. The glower flame fan in her hand turned into a revolving sharp blade, spinning rapidly towards Ghost King's face. Ghost King was caught off guard. He didn't expect Yiqing Luo to be able to counterattack under such circumstances. When the sharp blade separated the cloak on his face, he then reacted and quickly let go of Yiqing Luo, dodging backwards. Only, no matter how fast his reaction was, that revolving sharp blade, which was like a ball of raging fire, was even faster. Chapter 3363. Yiqing Luo took the opportunity and quickly retreated. She staggered a few steps before stabilizing her body. Then, he panted heavily. Indeed. Just like what the Ghost King said. With her current strength, fusing the power of the divine weapon was still too taxing. It was only a dozen rounds of fighting. She already had a feeling that she was unable to do as she wished. Very taxing. Extremely taxing. She forcefully closed her eyes and calmed herself down. Absolutely. She had to hold on. She could not let the Ghost King succeed. At least, she had to wait for Ah Xian to return. Ah Xian, he must be trying his best to return to her side and fighting against the dark formation. So, she had to hold on. She had to wait for Ah Xian. She raised her eyes, her gaze was firm as she looked at the Ghost King. But she saw. The cloak on the Ghost King's face was cut by the glower flame fan. His face was revealed. His facial features were regular. Yiqing Luo, who was used to seeing handsome men, felt that he was handsome. His age was around 40 to 50 years old. The side of his face was slashed by the glowing flame fan, and blood was flowing out of it. Not sure if it was an illusion. When she saw the Ghost King's face, Yiqing Luo actually had a kind of familiar feeling. But after a careful look, she felt that this was a stranger. A stranger she had never seen before. Just now, that fleeting sense of familiarity, what was going on? Young lady. Good, very good. You actually dare to hurt me. The Ghost King's eyes were filled with intense anger. He slowly wiped the blood on his face, his eyes were filled with a treacherous cold glint. Not good. Lass, he is angry. Old man Tsang was shocked. If he is serious, you will be in trouble. He suddenly said firmly, I will come out to help you. No need. Yiqing Luo immediately stopped him. The other party is from the upper realm. If you appear, he will definitely know. The Azure Dew bracelet is on me. No matter what. The secret of the Azure Dew bracelet must be concealed. Otherwise, once those ambitious people knew the whereabouts of the Azure Dew bracelet, they would definitely come to snatch it. After facing the Ghost King, Yiqing Luo was very clear. If those people from the upper realm forcefully snatched the Azure Dew bracelet, she wouldn't be able to block it, but Old Man Tsang was anxious and worried at the same time. Girl, the other party obviously came prepared. The venerable sovereign is trapped in the dark formation. Even a venerable sovereign would need some time to get out of that formation. Plus, we don't know what tricks the dark secluded palace have played in the formation. On top of that, there's obviously a formation set up around this tomb that targets your mental power. It's impossible for you to get those saint beasts to come out and help. When Yiqing Luo heard that, she was stunned. How could that be? Sealed my spiritual power. Then, aren't we still in contact? That's because I've advanced during this period of time, and the connection between us has also increased. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be able to contact me now. He had to admit it. While Yiqing Luo was using Hao Nanren as bait, Darkness Palace's trap within a trap had to be even more careful. Targeted at DMO Xian. Targeted at Yiqing Luo. Arrangements had been made. After all, the might of Yiqing Luo's few sacred beasts was simply too huge. If Yiqing Luo were to pull those sacred beasts out for a walk, even if the Palace Lord of Darkness and Ghost King joined hands, they would probably find it strenuous. So, this illusionary tomb was targeted at Yiqing Luo's mental power. When Yiqing Luo stepped into the palace she had seen previously, Chapter 3364. Yiqing Luo tried to sense the pet space. Sure enough, she couldn't contact her companions in the space. She pursed her lips tightly, the light in her blood-red eyes kept darting around. After a while, she fixed her gaze on Ghost King. I can do it. Old man Sung, even without Chi and the rest, it doesn't matter. After all, I'm the only one who can have the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, and also the one chosen by the Azure Water Artifact. After she finished speaking, her slender fingers clenched tightly again. That slightly unstable aura, once again, began to rise. On her fingertip, the azure water ring flashed with red light. Because of this, Yiqing Luo didn't notice. On the other side of the azure water ring, that red jade profound phoenix ring, was also faintly emitting a faint light. All of her energy, all concentrated on the artifact. She circulated the power of the profound heart jade and began to explore bit by bit towards her wrist. Lass. Old man Sung realized Yiqing Luo's intention and his expression changed greatly. You still want to release the power of the azure water artifact? No. Absolutely not. Old man Sung was about to rush out from the azure dew bracelet. Your body can't withstand the power of two artifacts. Even if you have the Tranquility Pearl, the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade will be unstable. Old man Sung saw that Yiqing Luo was still mobilizing her profound energy, and his aura exploded. He was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Lass, if the Overlord is here, she will absolutely not let you do this. If the Overlord painstakingly comes out from the dark formation, and something happens to you because of the backlash from the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, what will the Overlord do? Don't worry, Yiqing Luo slowly closed her eyes, her voice slightly trembling. Since the artifact chose me, then it must be something that belongs to me. If I can't conquer it, even if I contract the artifact, like what Ghost King said, it's just a useless thing. Success was always accompanied by risks. If she didn't try, how would she know that she couldn't control the artifact's power? This was an artifact that belonged to her. It should be conquered by her. The dark force had already entered the thin red line on his wrist. Azure Water Chain. This was the second Azure Water Divine artifact she had obtained from the 21st century plane. He fused the power of the Azure Water Ring and the Azure Water Chain together. It should be enough to deal with the Ghost King. Even if he couldn't kill the Ghost King, at the very least, he could buy some time. Old man Song was unable to refute Yiqing Luo's words. He indeed admired this point of Yiqing Luo the most. Confident, but not conceited. He also had the courage to challenge. Instead of going with the flow. After a while, he sighed. Forget it, I will accompany you. If the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade really suffers a backlash, I will definitely stop it even if I have to use all my soul power. Yiqing Luo smiled slightly. Then, he focused all his attention on the two divine artifacts. She guided the power of the two divine artifacts to fuse. Sure enough, it was as she had expected. When the power of the two divine artifacts fused together, it was as if it had its own consciousness. They quickly intertwined with each other. The fusion of the two energies was very smooth. But, the main body that received these two powers, only Yi Qing Luo wasn't feeling too good right now. This body of hers, releasing the power of the azure water ring, was already strenuous enough. Adding on the power of the azure water chain, once it fused. She felt the internal organs in her body were burning in pain, as if they were being burned by a raging flame. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.